what we're going to do is we're going to go through kind of everything that we've been working on for the past couple weeks and a quick review. I'm going to go over everything that you're going to need to be successful for today's assignment. Today's assignment is through LMS, so remember this isn't an assignment that you can redo. So please make sure to A, read the questions very carefully, and B, use your resources. You're at home, use what you've got, okay? Use your book, use your teaching videos, use your notes, which you should have been taking this whole time. So whatever you need to do to be successful, go ahead and make sure that you're going to utilize those. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to run down a couple things together, and hopefully this is going to help you ace that assignment for today. All right, so the first step is going to be going over our plant life cycle and the parts that kind of make up that life cycle, okay? So we're going to go over all of our tricks and tips to help you remember and be successful. Now, the absolute best resource is that BrainPop video, so if you want to go back and look at the BrainPop video that we've been watching, I kind of watch that every single year just to kind of refresh my memory because it's hard to remember which one comes first and what all of these mean. So the very first thing is pollination. This is number one. What is pollination? Well, it's when we have pollen traveling. This is the movement of pollen. So when you're outside and it's allergy season, that's because pollen is really, really high. Usually this is in the springtime when we get lots of new flowers, right? So there's lots of pollen traveling. So this is the movement of pollen. And you might wonder, what is pollen? Pollen is actually the male part of a flower, okay? So when you are smelling and then sneezing afterwards, it's that pollen. It's those male parts that are making you sneeze, okay? So this is the movement of male parts. Now remember, you have all this in your notes already. Movement of male parts. Okay, next up we have fertilization. So this is once those male parts have finally found their female part, and this is when those two come together. So this is going to be our male plus our female. Okay, so fertilization, this is when the pollen goes ahead and joins that female part. Next up, we have seed dispersal. That one's pretty easy. This is when those seeds kind of move around, okay? So seed dispersal, this is when they disperse, right? This is when they move. So seeds move. Now, pollination is also movement, right? But this is movement of those male parts. The seed dispersal, this is when the seeds are leaving, okay? After seed dispersal, we finally get that letter G. We get germination for grow. This is when we finally see some green. Once that seed has cracked open and we get some growth, okay? So germination for growth. We're going to move on and we're going to look at the plant structure, okay? You need to know your plant parts. And again, my favorite thing to do is look at those lilies. So of course we have our petals, we have our stem, but then you only have one female part per plant, and this is called the pistil. Remember, pistil ends in that letter L, so this is going to be that really big, tall part of the plant, okay, that's inside, right there. And then we have a lot of male parts. These male parts are called the stamen, right? Min for man. So those are the male parts, and you have a lot of those. See all of these? All right, excellent. We are going to go to our next slide, and we're going to go over metamorphosis. There are two types of metamorphosis, right? We have our complete and we have incomplete. In order to have complete, we talked about having a complete dollar. If you want a complete dollar, you need 4 quarters. So complete metamorphosis has 4 stages, okay? And it starts as an egg. So here's our egg. And then it goes to that larva, which is like a caterpillar, right? Larva, L. It looks like an L, that little worm-like structure. And then it goes into a pupa. Pupa is the same thing as a cocoon. That's just our 4th grade vocabulary word. And pupa, I make a P with my fingers, and I think about that little larva in that little cocoon, in that little pupa. Okay? And then after that, it turns into an adult. Okay? Now, we have 2 stages that are the same. The beginning and the end are identical to incomplete, but it's important to know how they are different, okay? So incomplete metamorphosis is not a complete dollar. It's incomplete, so we only have 3 stages. We already said they start and end the same, so there's only that middle stage that we don't know. That middle stage is going to be called a nymph, right? So the way that I remember this is incomplete has an N. So this is the one with the vocabulary word with an N, nymph. So we get an egg, we get a nymph, and then we go to an adult. So this is the only stage that's not over here in complete metamorphosis, okay? And another way that I remember the word nymph is that word N for newborn, right? So incomplete metamorphosis, this is when, as many times as it needs to, it will molt and then eventually grow into its big size. So a nymph is like a newborn baby, okay? We can tell looking at a newborn baby that it is a human and that it will continue to be a human and look like that. Or we can look at a newborn calf, right? And it will look like that until it grows into the adult, right? We know what kind of animal that is. So just like in this picture, we have an egg, we have a nymph, which is like a newborn, it's just smaller than the adult, and then eventually it grows into the adult, okay? All right, and last but not least, we have adaptations. So what are adaptations? Adaptations are a way that an animal changes. And these changes are due to helping it survive. Animals want to continue to survive. That's the whole point of animals, right? That's what they're striving for, is survival. They don't want to get eaten. So some important things are that animals and plants can change and they can adapt to their environment so that they're better suited to continue to survive. We did a couple of investigations. We did the investigation where the Bennetts helped me put beans and then we had to collect them based on their color, and also adaptations based on what utensil we were trying to get. We also did the investigation with our marsh and with our mountain rocky environment, and it's really important to kind of look at those. So let's, for example, think about the birds, the bird beaks that we used when we were trying to get food from the marsh and when we were trying to get food out of the rocky mountainous environment, okay? So those bird beaks were representing different types of birds. And just like when you go outside and you look at birds, all bird beaks look different. A hawk, they've got those really sharp pinchers, right? And then you might see a hummingbird, which Christella, I love that she showed us in a Zoom recently about how she has hummingbirds in her backyard. Those hummingbirds have those long, long beaks, and they just try to go into flowers, and they try to suck as much nectar as they can, right? So their beaks are made for whatever food they're trying to eat. Now, today on your quiz, it's going to be asking you about beaks and why beaks would be better suited for different environments. So let's think about the marsh. When we were in the marsh, what would work better? Would it work better? Marsh has water. So in the kitchen, what kind of things do I use when I'm, trying to eat things that are like watery based? I like to think of soup, right? Would I be wanting to use like a toothpick, like a hummingbird, to help me get my food? Or would I be wanting to use something like a spoon to help me get that food? So think about all of those different utensils in our kitchen and why those have been adapted, well, to help us better survive, to help us better eat. So think about that as you're doing that today, because you're going to have a short answer like that. All right, so hopefully this was all helpful. If you have any questions, definitely reach out. It's a very short little assignment, so please really get the most bang for your buck and make sure you get every question correct. Make sure to double check in your notebook. Make sure you're going to get them correct, okay? So do a great job.